You're nothing but a gold digger, Patricia sneered across the elegant dining table. We all know you married Thomas for his family's money. Heaven knows what he sees in a small town nobody like you. The crystal glasses clinked uncomfortably as several family members shifted in their seats. I sat there, my face burning, as my mother-in-law continued her practiced takedown of my character during what was supposed to be a celebratory family dinner. My name is Sarah Collins, and at 34, I was enduring yet another public humiliation from the woman who'd spent the last 5 years trying to prove I wasn't good enough for her precious son or the prestigious Hamilton family name. Mother Thomas started, but Patricia waved him off. No, Thomas, it needs to be said, especially now that you're taking over as CEO of Hamilton Industries. She adjusted her perfectly styled silver hair, her diamond bracelet catching the light. We can't have someone like her representing our family. Did you know she grew up in a rental house? Her father was a mechanic. I gripped my napkin under the table, thinking about the sealed envelope in my bag, the one I'd planned to share with everyone tonight, the one that would change everything. My father may have been a mechanic, I said quietly, but he taught me the value of hard work and integrity, two things that seemed to be in short supply at this table. Patricia's eyes narrowed. How dare you speak about integrity? We all know you've been manipulating Thomas since college, and now, just as he's about to take over the company, you've somehow convinced him to buy that failing tech firm without consulting the board. Ah, there it was, the real reason for tonight's attack, the acquisition of TechCore Solutions, a deal I'd advised Thomas on, much to Patricia's dismay. TechCore is a sound investment, Thomas defended, but his voice lacked conviction. He'd always struggled to stand up to his mother, a weakness Patricia exploited at every opportunity. Sound investment, Patricia laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. That company's been circling the drain for months. The only reason it had any value at all was because of those ridiculous patents everyone's been whispering about. Patents that probably don't even exist. I checked my watch. 7:45 p.m. Right on schedule. The dining room door opened, and Jenkins, the family's longtime butler, appeared. Excuse me, Mrs. Hamilton, but Mr. Morrison from Sterling and Associates is here. He says it's urgent. Patricia frowned. Edward Morrison, my corporate lawyer. At this hour, a tall man in an expensive suit entered the room, his face grave. I apologize for interrupting dinner, Mrs. Hamilton, but this couldn't wait. There's been a significant development regarding Hamilton Industries. Patricia straightened, her social mask slipping into place. Edward dear, can't this wait until morning? We're in the middle of a family dinner. I'm afraid not, he replied, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me, especially since the matter concerns your company's new owner. The silence that fell over the dining room was absolute. Patricia's fork clattered against her plate. New owner, she whispered. What are you talking about? Hamilton Industries belongs to our family. Thomas is taking over next week. Edward Morrison cleared his throat. That's why I'm here. The board meeting scheduled for next week has been cancelled. The ownership of Hamilton Industries changed hands this afternoon when TechCore Solutions exercised its majority holding rights. Patricia's face went white. That's impossible. TechCore was just a small acquisition. TechCore, Edward continued, which already owned 40% of Hamilton Industries through various shell companies, completed its purchase of controlling shares today. And I believe you already know its CEO. All eyes turned to me as I slowly reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. You see, Patricia, I said, my voice steady, my father might have been a mechanic, but he was also an inventor. Those ridiculous patents you mentioned, he developed them in that rental house garage you love to mock. Patents that formed the foundation of TechCore Solutions. Patricia's hands began to shake. No, when he died 3 years ago, he left me everything, including his majority stake in TechCore. I've been running it quietly ever since, watching as you and your board systematically undervalued its worth. Today, thanks to your own dismissal of its potential, TechCore finally gained controlling interest in Hamilton Industries. Sarah, Thomas breathed, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have stood up to your mother if I had? I asked softly. Or would you have warned her, like you did about every other decision I've ever made? Edward Morrison placed a document folder on the table. Mrs. Hamilton, as your lawyer, I need to inform you that your position as board chairwoman has been terminated, effective immediately. The new owner would like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss transition details. Patricia's face had moved from white to gray. The new owner, she whispered, finally understanding. You mean, I stood up, smoothing my dress. That's right, Patricia, meet your new boss. It turns out this gold digger just bought your entire company. Patricia's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass, nearly knocking it over. This is preposterous. Thomas, do something. But Thomas sat frozen, his eyes darting between me and his mother. I could see the wheels turning in his head, reassessing every conversation we'd ever had about business, every suggestion I'd made about company investments. The board won't stand for this, Patricia declared, but her voice wavered. They'll never accept you as owner. Edward Morrison cleared his throat again. Actually, Mrs. Hamilton, the board has already been notified. Most members seemed quite enthusiastic about the change in leadership, particularly after reviewing Mrs. Collins's track record with TechCore's innovations. I pulled out another document from my envelope. You might want to look at this, Patricia. It's a list of board members who've already pledged their support, including your brother Richard, who's been quite concerned about your recent decision-making. Patricia snatched the paper, her perfectly manicured nails crumpling its edges. As she read, her face grew increasingly pale. Richard, how could he? Perhaps because I showed him the audit reports, I replied calmly. The ones detailing how you've been using company funds for personal expenses, the private jet trips to Paris, the business meetings at luxury spas, the mysterious consulting fees paid to your boyfriend in the Cayman Islands. Thomas's head snapped up. Boyfriend, mother, what is she talking about? Patricia's carefully constructed world was crumbling around her, and we all knew it. The other family members at the table sat in stunned silence, watching the mighty Patricia Hamilton unravel. You've been planning this all along, she accused, her voice shrill. Getting close to Thomas, making him trust you. No, Patricia, I fell in love with Thomas despite his family connection, not because of it. I kept my business separate because I wanted to succeed on my own terms. But you, I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. You forced my hand with your constant attacks, your manipulation, your attempts to convince everyone I was nothing but a gold digger. Sarah, Thomas finally spoke, his voice quiet. All those times you tried to warn me about the company's financial decisions, about mother's spending. I turned to my husband, seeing real understanding in his eyes for the first time. Yes, I tried to help without revealing my position, but you always chose to believe her over me. Because she's my mother, he protested weakly. And I'm your wife, I replied, but that never seemed to matter when she was tearing me down. Edward Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Hamilton, there's more. The board has also approved a full audit of all financial transactions from the past 5 years. Patricia's glass finally did topple, red wine spreading across the pristine white tablecloth like blood. You can't do this to me. This company is my life. Was your life, I corrected. And you should have thought about that before you spent years trying to destroy mine. Jenkins appeared at Patricia's elbow with a cloth for the spilled wine, but she waved him away frantically. Thomas, please, you can't let her do this. But Thomas was staring at the audit summary I'd placed in front of him, his face growing darker with each page. Mother, these numbers, the unauthorized expenses, how could you? Oh, now you want to see the evidence. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. I tried to show you similar reports 3 months ago, but you said I was just being paranoid about your mother. The other family members began to whisper among themselves. Patricia's younger sister Catherine actually smiled, years of watching her sister's tyrannical behavior finally paying off. There will be a formal announcement tomorrow, I continued, standing up. Patricia, you can either resign quietly tonight, or we can make this very public. Your choice. You little snake, she hissed, but the fight was leaving her voice. You've ruined everything. No, Patricia, you did that all on your own. I just happened to be in a position to stop you. I gathered my things, looking around the table. I suggest everyone review their financial ties to Hamilton Industries. There are going to be a lot of changes. As I turned to leave, Thomas grabbed my hand. Sarah, wait, we need to talk about this. I gently pulled away. Yes, we do, but not tonight. Tonight you need to decide where you stand, with the mother who's been embezzling from your family's company, or with the wife you never trusted enough to listen to. But I love you, he said desperately. Love without trust isn't enough, Thomas. You know where to find me, when you're ready to have a real conversation. As I walked out of the dining room, I heard Patricia burst into tears. followed by the sound of more wine glasses tipping over. The dynasty she'd ruled with an iron fist was slipping through her fingers, and she knew it. Edward Morrison followed me to the door. That was quite a dinner performance, he said quietly. Should I have the resignation papers delivered to her tonight? I paused at the front door, looking back at the chaos I'd left behind. Give her until morning. Let her spend one last night pretending she's still in control. Tomorrow reality sets in. The next morning, Hamilton Industries headquarters was buzzing with activity. As I walked through the lobby, employees who'd never given me a second glance now scrambled to greet me. The same security guard who used to make me sign in as a visitor at Patricia's insistence now held the door open with a respectful "Good morning, Mrs. Collins." Edward Morrison met me at the executive elevator. "Patricia's here," he said quietly. "She's refusing to leave her office." "Of course she is," I sighed. "How many reporters outside?" "At least a dozen." The story leaked overnight, probably from one of the dinner guests. As we reached the top floor, I could hear Patricia's voice echoing down the hallway. "I don't care what the papers say. This is my company." I found her throwing files into a box, her perfect hair disheveled, still wearing last night's clothes. Thomas stood in the corner, looking lost. "Patricia," I said calmly, "it's time." She whirled around, mascara smeared under her eyes. You think you can just walk in here and take everything I've built, everything you've built?" I crossed to the desk, picking up a framed photo of Hamilton Industries' original founders, Thomas's grandfather and my father, standing together in front of their first factory. "Funny, I don't see you in this picture, Sarah." Thomas stepped forward. "I stayed at the house last night, talking with Mother. She admits she made mistakes, but surely we can work something out. Keep this in the family." I set the photo down carefully. "This stopped being about family the moment your mother decided to treat me like an enemy, instead of a daughter-in-law." "The audit team is already here, Patricia. They're very interested in those offshore accounts." Patricia sank into her chair, finally defeated. "You'll destroy the Hamilton name." "No," I corrected her. "I'm going to restore it, starting with the charitable foundation you've been draining for years. Did you know your husband, Thomas's father, set that up to fund engineering scholarships for underprivileged students? Students like my father once was." Thomas's head snapped up. "What?" "Mother said that foundation was discontinued years ago due to lack of funds." "The funds didn't lack, Thomas. They were just rerouted to your mother's personal accounts." I placed a folder on the desk. "The resignation papers, Patricia. Sign them, and we'll handle the financial irregularities internally. Refuse and I release everything to the SEC." Her hand shook as she reached for the pen. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I replied. "You taught me exactly how ruthless this business can be." As Patricia signed, Thomas touched my arm. "Sarah, about last night, about everything. I should have listened to you, should have stood up to her." "Yes, you should have." I watched as Edward Morrison collected the signed papers. "We'll need to talk about that, about trust and choices, and where we go from here." Patricia stood up, straightening her shoulders with one last attempt at dignity. "Well, I suppose you'll be moving into this office now. Finally got what you wanted." "Actually, no," I smiled. "I'm keeping my office at TechCore. This office belongs to the new CEO of Hamilton Industries, assuming he's ready to start making his own decisions." Both Patricia and Thomas stared at me. "You're giving Thomas the CEO position?" Patricia asked incredulously. "After everything?" "I'm offering him the chance to earn it," I corrected. "Hamilton Industries needs a CEO who understands both its history and its future, someone who knows where the company's been, and where it needs to go." "But," I turned to Thomas, "that CEO needs to stand on his own feet. No more running to mommy for approval." Thomas straightened, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the leader he could become. "I understand. Do you?" I challenged. "Because this is your last chance, Thomas. Prove you can lead this company with integrity, or I'll find someone who can." Patricia gathered her belongings, her movements stiff with suppressed rage. At the door she paused. "You know, I actually underestimated you all these years. You're not a gold digger, you're a shark." I laughed. "No, Patricia. I'm just a mechanic's daughter, who learned that the best way to fix something broken is to take it apart and rebuild it properly. Consider this company under renovation. After she left, Thomas looked at me differently, not with the blindly devoted love of before, but with something new. Respect, maybe. Understanding. You're remarkable, he said softly. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Prove it, I replied, not with words, with actions. Show me you can be the man I married, not the son your mother raised. As I left the office, employees parted like the Red Sea. The whispers would continue for weeks, the story would make headlines, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that finally, after 5 years of enduring Patricia's abuse, justice had been served, not through petty revenge, but through smart business and clean hands. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving it cold, it's serving it legally, with a properly notarized serving of humble pie on the side. End of story.